Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Growth Path. Today I am delighted to have on one of my old pals, Rob Pryce. Rob is currently the Chief Revenue Officer of a company called Xtremepush. Prior to that, Rob has worked in numerous positions, having been a managing director, founder of his own business a number of years ago, having gone and sold that business, then was with Microsoft for a number of years, was a country manager for Microsoft at advertising, was sales and strategy and brand lead at Microsoft for Europe as well. Um, and in the past years, he's then moved on to director of account management and customer success at Quantcast, then is a founder and board member at IAB Ireland, member of the brand committee for IAB Europe. Jesus, Rob, you've got loads on your
This
CV
this
here.
sounds this is getting a bit like This Is Your Life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're such a young man, you know. So he's Chief Revenue Officer at Bionic. He's also done some consultancy work as well in the Chief Revenue Officer role. And then over the past number of years, he has been, since November 2019, Chief Revenue Officer at Xtremepush. Rob, great to have you on, mate.
Thanks, Andy. And didn't know I'd done so much, but great to hear. Good to connect as always.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a bit of background for everyone listening. So Rob and I work together. We have been working together for the past, 5 years almost. Rob's a hard man to get on your side, but once you get him on the side, you're not leaving it. Rob, tell us, like, you've gone from various different sizes of companies over the years. So you've been at Microsoft, which is obviously Microsoft, they're fucking massive, right? And you've gone then more down into the world of what was back then Xtremepush, right? Was a startup. So how was that transition for you?
Sorry, it goes back to very enjoyable will be the first thing, but I think it's all about Andy's skill sets and relying on sort of core pillars as you go through. So as you mentioned before, I'd set up my own agency, lucky enough to sell that, gone into Microsoft, thought I knew everything, realized I knew nothing. I moved into it, but like it's really about the core fundamentals. So if you take it there, it's about people. First of all, it's about working with people, trusting, building a relationship side of it. It's about sort of then process, which is very unlike me to say. If you'd asked young Rob 15 years ago, or younger Rob 15 years ago, but what Microsoft was fantastic was understanding scalable processes, no matter what size of the business. And if I look at it, flipping that into Xtremepush, that's probably one of the core functions and reasons that we've had the success we've had in the last 6.5 years from that side. And then I suppose, while I really enjoyed Microsoft, I missed the cut and thrust and drive of sort of a smaller challenger business as XP was, say, 6.5 years ago. And we've now developed over that time into the category leader and a brand that's going to continue to grow. So it's about the core skill sets, though. It's about people, it's about trust, it's about process, and it's about the ability to take a decision and execute. And if you're not going to get it right all the time, Andy, as we know well, but it's just having the belief, learning, and not doing it again.
Like at Xtremepush now, we've gone from strength to strength, I would say. Like, as I said, I've been with the business almost 5 years now. You're longer than me. You got a year on top of that for me. Like, the business has grown so much. Like, where are some of the teething pains, let's call it, in scale from your perspective? Like, where are some of the places where it's been really painful for you?
Well, I think if you take a step back at the start, it's assessing where you're at and where you want to get to. And I think that's super important. So when we looked at it 6.5 years ago, we were doing well, but we had to do a complete reset. And I think this is fundamental across our areas. It's understanding where you want to be in a certain timeline and how you get there. So we did a whole reorg and restructure. We didn't get it fully right, but we put it in about accountability, about ownership, about process. And that was a sort of a lot of milestones that are core. So it was building, first of all, the org structure, implementing the processes, but also upskilling the existing people, or sometimes making the decision of you need new people to come in. And again, hence we met 5 years ago, like the skill set knowledge that you had was fundamental to helping us grow. And I think it's making the decisions, but there's a lot of pain points in getting people on board, but it's always good to get a few quick wins. And again, whether that's through winning a client, growing a client, building with people. And I suppose it's the ability to know what your goal is, assess it, and change direction if you have to.
Yeah, I like that. I think the thing on the process creation, right? And this has been something that I've probably struggled with a little bit myself as well around process, because process feels like you're slowing down a little bit when you're creating process. It's a balancing act, right? How do you implement process to make sure that you're scaling the company efficiently, whilst at the same time not losing any speed? Because at Xtremepush, things move so quickly. You know how it is, like the fun never stops. You know, how do you...
Everyone's afraid of the word process, but I look at it, so prior, as I said, to Microsoft, I thought I knew everything. And in Microsoft, you understand it's a world-class leading brand with hundreds of thousands of people, but it has process accountabilities and that. So no matter what size your org is, you need to understand who does what, who's playing there. It's like a rugby match. Like, you know what the out half does, you know what the scrum half does, you know what the fullback is supposed to do if they do it. But it's the same in having a process. This is a playbook. You look at recent NFL, like, you have a playbook, you play by it, you know what your role is, and you evolve. So for me, when coming into XP, it wasn't like, let's slow down and debate every decision for an hour. Like, process doesn't mean you to deliberate for hours. It means there's a clear understanding of who does what, how it's done, and who's accountable. And I think accountability, if you look at most organizations, that's one where people fall around, is understanding who should do what and who's accountable.
Accountability, that's actually, when it comes to process, I've never quite not thought about it that way, that it's not necessarily about the process, it's just about making sure that people know what they should be doing. That's probably it, and making sure that they deliver on it.
It's like as simple as everyone has a HubSpot or a Salesforce, about a 10-step process in the sales. It's knowing when you qualify it from 10 to 20 to 30%, who needs to be involved, what are the actions, how are you doing it. It doesn't mean necessarily that you slow down in all debate, but like, if you're talking to someone, you've sent them a quote, you've negotiated and it's signed off, you move to the next stage and you know then what's the next steps, who do I need to involve? And a lot of that, people, it's a scalable process, and that goes to, we've gone from 20 to 40 to 100 to 160 people. And part of what we're doing that is people know their roles and what they should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, like, change lanes a little bit around the category leader pieces you were talking about there a couple of minutes ago. So Xtremepush put themselves, or the senior leadership team at Xtremepush said, okay, we want to be category leader in iGaming by 2026. That was a promise of the business, I think maybe 3 years ago. Something like
3.5 years ago. The wider sports betting and gaming, not just sports the iGaming.
Sports betting and gaming. Sports betting and gaming.
But this, come on.
Tell us, like, look, it was back then when that was first said, I think people were on board, but it was still a big aspiration, right? But now it's actually reality.
It's a reality, but it's an aspiration that was achievable. So if I look at it and you were involved with part of it, we do very strongly in financial services and publishing. We had tried and still do a little bit of e-commerce and put a focus when we were doing it. But when you pivot and understand who's your ICP, where do you add value, where isn't the space as clustered, how can you be a challenger where there's opportunity in the market? We looked at sports betting and gaming and realized we have the expertise, we have the tech. There's no reason why we can't double down and win this against others. And it was having a clear, defined plan. That obviously was supported by expanding into America, expanding into Brazil, by the acquisition trail. So we've had 4 acquisitions along the way, but it was a clear focus. And back to what I said at the start, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And you were involved with much of this. Did we all get it right every month, every quarter? No. But it's taking those learnings, understanding what we could do and why we win. And that's really important to understand for every brand. Why are you different? Why should people choose you? You're not going to win everything, but things you do lose, find out why and make sure you don't happen again.
I think for me, the big thing, you said this already, being at the helm of it, was the focus. Like, there was no, like, and there was a clear, like, line drawn in the sand by senior leadership to say, look, let's put as much energy as possible as we possibly can into winning that sports betting and gaming space. Let's not lose focus on the stuff that we have already, right? Let's not lose focus on other verticals that we already have some good foothold in, but let's really beat the drum loud in that space so that we can win it.
I think one thing just to double down in, sorry Andy, to cut across you, is about the culture. And a bit of saying, like, the leadership double down and set the vision. We did. But what's super important in any organization that's moving fast, scaling and growing is the culture. So in those decisions, it wasn't just me, or it wasn't just the CEO or the COO. we had everyone and had heated debates, understanding the pros and cons. And what's really important in an organization is once you double down and are all aligned, it's the whole business. We didn't dictate to the business, say, this is what we're doing, and people going, they were part of the decisioning, they were involved with the pros and the cons, and then everyone got right behind the idea. And I think culture is one thing that's massively important in an organization, because you're going to have challenging times, but as long as you've got each other's back, that's really important.
I think just on that point, when it comes to Xtremepush, out of all the companies that I've worked with now over the past year since I started my own business, but also when I was in full-time positions, I think that Xtremepush is the strongest culture out of all of them. And you haven't been in from pretty early doors, so Xtremepush was first founded in 2016, properly registered 2016.
Yeah.
You coming in 2020? 2019. Like, you were one of the first on board, at least from the senior leadership perspective, one of the first on board alongside Kev and Tommy, founders of the business. So you've obviously been very instrumental in building that culture. Like, how, because you can, with Xtremepush, you can cut the culture with a knife, I should say. You can feel it and see it everywhere. How do you do that?
I think it goes back to, we have a strong focus around interview process about investing in people. And like you look at it there, people talk about competency, skill sets, functional, yet they're all important. But a large step of everyone being interviewed will either not, I don't interview everyone, but there's people in the process that assess cultural fit, cultural alignment. Obviously, I can't use language in this, but no,
you can't.
No arseholes. And this is a clear policy. Like, if you look at hiring for an account manager, you could have 20 people who could do the job, but there's one or two that stand out culturally: ambition, drive, passion, team player. And it's identifying those and bringing them in and improving what we have there. So it's really important for us to get the right people and invest in it. But also, if people aren't right, doesn't mean they're not right for another business. And it's having those honest conversations with people.
Yeah, I think there's a...
Would it be fair to say, sorry, Andrew, that you have a dog?
I do. How did you know that?
I can hear him in the background.
You can hear him in the background. Yeah, so he's barking away in the background. That's the dog, all right. But I have to say, the one thing that I recognise about Xtremepush is that everybody's willing to pick up a bag and run with it. I don't think there's nobody that's like sitting back and being like, okay, this is, I'm not going to do it, or I'm going to put it off to tomorrow. Like, if you ask somebody of something or something of somebody, they're just going to say, yes, okay, let's try to figure it out, right? Which on one hand is good, on the other hand can cause problems, especially when you're at scale. Because if you have everybody doing everything all the time, you end up in a position where people start getting burnt out and you don't get stuff delivered. How do you balance it?
I think that you've hit a key point. It's about, if I have a question or anyone has a question, you go to someone, they support you. But like, we are not a micromanaging company. And it goes back to the accountability and stuff. Like, when one of the big pluses we have is a very detailed enablement and onboarding for every role that comes in. So if you're an AE, an AM, a product, a tech, there's a specific, very intensive 3-month roadmap of help, support, and that side of it. But then it goes back to what I said about it goes back to, what are the accountabilities? What are you on the hook for? And how do you deliver within a wider org? And once that's there, people are willing to help. But ultimately, if I look at it from my perspective, I'm accountable for revenue growth within XP. I know that's my job, even though there's 20 others. You help us and drive very strong passion among SDRs and marketing. But you also help in other areas, Andy, that I've met other people who would say, that's not my job, work away. And I think that's part of the benefit of, you said we could be a hard taskmaster. You've built yourself very strongly into the culture, alignment, and the can-do attitude. And that's really important.
Yeah, look, I go back to the first time that I met you, Rob. I was telling somebody about it today, right? So I didn't say Xtremepush is a hard taskmaster. I said you're a hard taskmaster. So no, the first time that we met, so I got an introduction from the CEO, Tommy. He said, okay, well, we need some help on the marketing side. Rob's the man. Marketing goes into Rob. Have a chat with Rob. And I remember the first time you had the call and you were like, who the fuck is this guy? I remember just that. And it took some time, But that type of, I have to say, that type of you digging into me like that, that's helped you hire other people on the team that are able to do the job that you're looking for them to do, and to build into that culture, etc. So I've been with the company now almost 5 years. There's a good reason for that, because I am that type of person that's able to dig in and just say, okay, let's get on with it. But that's across the entire team. That's not unique to me.
No, it's not unique to do, but part of it is and again, it's the role you do, the fractional role. Like, I've been burnt by it before in other organizations and companies where people would just say, give me my money, and weren't part of the team. But I suppose the difference with you is, or the role you played, or why we actually get on well now, but is around, you understand the culture, you understand the leaning in. Like, it doesn't mean we chase every time, but if I ring you with something urgent, you can come back to me, and vice versa. And I think for me, it's about being part of the team on that side. So you won me over on that side, on that, but the team is delivered. And it goes back to the earlier, like from the get-go, from marketing and then into the Estador, it's very clear what the deliverables are on that side, and they're being delivered. So that always makes it easier.
Absolutely. But delivery is important. I agree with that. Let's talk a bit about what you've managed to deliver, right? You've been with the business for 6 years now, over 6 years. What's the percentage growth that you've seen? Come on, you know this on the back of your hand.
Well, no.
Percentage growth over the 6 years, Rob.
I would say roughly about 1,051%. And the only reason this asshole has asked me this is we had our offsite last week, and every year I do the growth from that. Yeah, so over 1,000% growth in 6 years,
which is unbelievable, by the way. Congratulations on that. That is massive, right? And we'd have other like newly starting or people that have just been in their first chief revenue officer role now, that are stepping into maybe a fast-paced startup like you did back in 6 years ago with Xtremepush. Like, what advice would you give them?
I suppose it's, before you go into a company, and this is really important for me, is meeting. If you're going in at that level, you're going to be reporting into a CEO probably, who's probably going to be a co-founder. And it's super important in the early conversations to understand, can you work with that person? But it's two-way. And what I mean by that is, I met Tommy and Kev, who are the co-founders, and that you're ultimately going to have to tell them that their child is a little bit ugly, and you need them to implement the change. But also for them, they need to be able to assess, well, does this person, can he help me grow my child into a better version of themselves? And that's really important at the start. So it's getting that credibility, understanding that work dynamic, because it's not always like that. And I think when you join a CRO into a founders-led company, you need to be very clear that the confidence and the decisions you bring will be implemented and will impact positively in the business.
I really like that. I think one of the things that I've learned from you, just as a connector to that, is pushing back. Like, you put, like, I've been in meetings with you, but you might laugh because you're stubborn, right? Like, I know you, and you're stubborn generally. It's a bit of crack, right? We joke about it sometimes, of being stubborn, but that actually plays massively into your favor. Like, so not every quarter, as you said before, has gone our way. Like, there's been quarters where it's like, you've seen the 1,000% growth over the past 6 years, but we've had mares of quarters for whatever reason, right? These things happen. It's business. But the fact that you've constantly believed in what you were doing was right, and you were able to push back at the pushback that you would have been getting from your boss, your CEO, etc., right? To be able to say, look, we're on the right track, and this is what I think, and you're able to push that. Whereas some other people might say, oh no, maybe they're right or whatever. You let that little bit of doubt come in, but you were always certain of it. And that's one thing.
You got to be certain, but the one thing you can guaranteed, it's not going to be a linear growth. So for me, when I look at it, is, all right, you're going to have tough quarters, that everyone knows like that, but as long as you're going directionally in the right way and you have wins. So for example, in a year where we wouldn't have grown as much as we want to grow, still grew well over 30%, which is really strong in a big business. But we had one or two key wins in enterprise solutions that we've been targeting for years. And it's then understanding, right, you might win everything, but as long as you're winning some of the key ones, and it goes back to what I said, like, and what I talked about with you, if you don't have accountability and not delivering, then it's a different conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think one of the things as well when you say about winning like large businesses and so on, I think people sometimes in the position just they have the idea, okay, we just need to win that big logo and then it's going to get easier. And we just need to win the next logo and then it's going to get easier. You know what does get easier? New business acquisition gets easier, but then it gets harder on delivery. So there's once you put out a fire somewhere else, another fire pops up somewhere. So the more business you like, it's never a struggle. Let's say it's never easy. Probably the
No,
best way to put it.
the way I approach it, sorry, with the business, I'm very upfront. You have to be accurate around pipeline forecasting and that. But the way I would look at it is I would never count what we would call tier zeros or whales in a forecast. It's upside or gravy. So you need to drive your business as if you're not going to win them. Even though you aspirationally we look to win 3 a year, I won't put that in forecast, but you've got to ensure you deliver the growth without them. And when they came in, you'll have a sterling year. And that's really important that you're not going, well, if I get this one, it's going to make my year. It'll improve my year, but you still should have all the other elements. And that's really important.
Well, let's go back. Let's go back to just those tier zeros as you mentioned before. So tier zeros being those whales of accounts, like those large enterprise accounts. And let's go back to some of those that you would have won back in the early days, back when Xtremepush was smaller than it is now. Small company from Ireland competing on a global scale and managing to go in and convince those large enterprise companies that we're the right fit for you. Now, a lot of that is around relationship building, etc. But you would have been right at the forefront of closing a lot of those deals. Now, there would have been A's involved, etc., more people involved. But how do you create that rapport, certainty that you can deliver as opposed to your biggest competitor that may be, I don't know, 10 times the size of you back then? How do you do that?
Right. So we'll go back to the start of why I joined here. Most people, if listening, if it's only just you and me, I don't know many people listen, but we've all sold shit before. When I joined XP, and every single person had this, if you join a company with a shit product, don't do it. So when I joined here, no matter what size we are or who we were with, I knew we had a product that can and will deliver. And that is super important, gives you the ability to stick the chest out. So when we looked at it from that, it was doing the donkey work, hours, putting the hours in, getting everything right and that. But you've sort of hit it on the head. It's about relationships and driving confidence. So if we look at 3 areas we'll always work in and still do, is about world-class technology, which we have. It's about expertise, and that's expertise in the industries you work in and in the tech. But at the last pillar is what we call sort of leaning in, or a partnership approach. And clients and customers appreciate us for that. But it's also the relation, like we have verbally had, and without name checking, we won the biggest account last year globally in sports betting and gaming. And one of the elements that we was fed back is your relationship building and how we felt you were a partner. So that, goes back to the start, having the ability to talk to everyone. You're not going to win as much at the start. Like our conversion rate was lower, that like we have a strong conversion rate now because we have the brand build. But like when we started hitting America 4 years ago, we had 3 logos and no office. We built a logo and built an office in 2021, and we've now close on 65 clients in North America. But you've got to start, have a belief in yourself and have that ability to meet and push back and be fair with people.
That's amazing advice, Rob. All right. Well, we're just coming up on time now. I think we'll finish on that strong note. I really appreciate your time, Rob. Thanks a million. Where can people get you? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, is the best way. It's Pryce, on that side. And listen, Andy, I've enjoyed the time and enjoyed working with you.
Absolutely, likewise. Well, hey, Rob, thanks a million again. I'll make sure that your LinkedIn details are shared in the description of this as well. And guys, this has been another episode of Growth Path. Rob, thanks a million.
Cheers, Andrew.
Thank you, Robert.